They came from my grandfather's bridge at 6:30 in the morning. I heard it before I saw it, that sickening crack like a century breaking in half. Marjorie Whitman's cement mixer plowed across my grandfather's 1923 fieldstone bridge, and 15 tons of spinning concrete plummeted into Willow Creek below. 100 years of family history, gone in seconds. Marjorie stood there in her crisp white blazer, watching the destruction with a smile. "Oops," she sneered. "Those old rocks weren't built for real trucks, honey." What she didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that I'd spent 3 months building the perfect trap. And she had just walked straight into it. Welcome to the HOA Files. I'm Roman Kellerman, 52, retired civil engineer. And this is the story of how one arrogant HOA president destroyed herself trying to destroy me. Let me paint you a picture of what we're talking about. 12 acres of Pennsylvania paradise, inherited from my grandfather. Rolling hills, an apple orchard, a converted barn workshop where I craft custom furniture using his century-old hand tools. Every morning at 6 a.m. I'd stand on his fieldstone bridge with my coffee, fingers tracing the smooth stones, listening to Willow Creek gurgling underneath while red-winged blackbirds chattered in the cattails. That bridge was my grandfather's masterpiece. He spent 7 years building it, 7 years selecting each stone, mixing lime mortar by hand, engineering every load calculation with nothing but slide rules and determination. Rated for 15 tons, designed for 1920s farm equipment. His original blueprints, soft as tissue paper and smelling faintly of machine oil, still lived in my workshop alongside his perfectly maintained chisels and planes. Here's the critical detail everyone needs to understand. That bridge was my only vehicle access to County Road 47. Everything surrounding my property? Protected wetlands and swamp. You want to reach my land, you cross my bridge. No exceptions. It was perfect. Until Hurricane Marjorie made landfall. Marjorie Whitman, 58. Blonde bob sharp enough to slice bread. BMW with Whitman Realty vanity plates that screamed entitlement from 3 blocks away. She'd moved to Millbrook Heights 3 years earlier and immediately launched her campaign to become HOA president on a platform of property value enhancement. Her first gift to me was a certified violation notice declaring my grandfather's barn workshop an unsightly structure requiring immediate community-approved beige paint to maintain neighborhood aesthetic standards. I politely refused, explaining the historical significance and family heritage. Big mistake. She appeared at my door the next morning, designer blazer crisp despite the humidity, smile colder than December. "Roman, some people just don't understand modern property values. Maybe you'd be happier somewhere more rustic." The way she said rustic made it sound like a communicable disease. Here's the community dynamics you need to understand. Millbrook Heights consisted of 47 homes built around my grandfathered property like an expensive noose. Most residents were retirees who appreciated my custom furniture and respected family heritage. But Marjorie controlled the 5-member HOA board through real estate connections, legal intimidation, and carefully applied social pressure. 3 neighbors had already been forced to sell after receiving daily violation notices for infractions like mailbox heights and lawn care schedules. Marjorie's real target became clear when she started showing investors around my property without permission, describing her Phase 2 development vision. Luxury condos where my workshop stood. Executive homes where grandfather's apple orchard bloomed. All she needed was to convince one stubborn engineer that resistance was futile. Then her nephew Derek entered the picture and everything escalated. Derek Whitman. Built like a bouncer, business ethics of a payday loan operation. Owner of Pinnacle Construction. When the HOA hired Derek's company to build their new clubhouse, he discovered that using my bridge instead of the county route saved 20 minutes per cement truck run. Monday morning, 7 a.m. I'm savoring my coffee when I hear it, rumble, groan, crack, echoing across the water. A 25-ton cement mixer crossing my century-old bridge like it's Interstate 95. I walked over, coffee mug still in hand, workshop apron dusted with walnut shavings. "Excuse me. This is private property with posted weight limits." Derek barely glanced up from his clipboard. Marjorie cleared it. "Got a problem? Take it up with her." I called Marjorie directly. Professional courtesy, engineer to, well, whatever she was. "Marjorie, your nephew's trucks are damaging my bridge. This needs to stop." Her laugh could have frosted windows. "Oh, Roman, don't be so dramatic. It's just a bridge. Derek needs efficient access for the community clubhouse. It's private property with posted weight limits." "Weight limits?" She said it like I'd mentioned my collection of unicorn tears. "Honey, this is about community progress. Don't be selfish." "Selfish? that word would come back to destroy her. Within 2 weeks, Derek's operation escalated to military precision. 4 cement mixers per day, sometimes 6. Each truck weighed 25 tons when loaded, nearly double my bridge's safe capacity. The sound was like living inside a rock tumbler. Diesel exhaust started choking my morning coffee routine. Loose mortar began falling into Willow Creek like concrete snow. My workshop, where I crafted $3,000 dining tables for discerning clients, turned into a vibration chamber. Hand tools rattled off their pegs with each truck passage. One morning, I watched a cherry bookcase I'd been working on for 3 months literally shake itself apart. 3 months of careful joinery reduced to expensive kindling. That's when my engineering background truly kicked in. Here's what the Whitmans didn't understand about retired civil engineers. We document everything, calculate failure points, and plan for every contingency. I installed security cameras focused on the bridge approach and started a photo log of increasing damage. Every crack, every loose stone, every instance of posted weight limits being ignored. My grandfather always said, measure twice, cut once. I was measuring everything twice and documenting it 3 times. Then I spent 6 hours in the county courthouse basement archives, breathing that distinctive smell of old paper and bureaucratic dust, researching my property deed. What I found was better than Christmas morning. Specific language stating the bridge was maintained for grantor's sole use and benefit with exclusive vehicular access rights. Derek had 0 legal right to use my bridge. None. Marjorie's community necessity argument was complete legal fiction. I drafted a cease and desist letter with copies of the deed documentation and hand-delivered it to both Marjorie and Derek. Derek's response? He crumpled it up and tossed it in his truck's overflowing trash bin without reading it. Marjorie's response came through the neighborhood Facebook group. Some residents are prioritizing personal convenience over community progress. We hope cooler heads will prevail. Personal convenience. Like protecting my grandfather's 7-year labor of love was some kind of selfish whim. I started actually weighing Derek's trucks using portable scales borrowed from a contractor friend. Posted limit, 15 tons. Derek's cement mixers when fully loaded, 35 to 40 tons. We're talking 250% capacity overload, like asking a dining room chair to support a refrigerator. Dr. Patricia Wong, a structural engineer specializing in historical preservation, confirmed my worst fears after examining the bridge. Mr. Kellerman, this bridge is perfectly sound for its intended 15-ton capacity, but current loading patterns will cause catastrophic structural failure within 6 to 8 weeks. Catastrophic failure. I filed that phrase away for future use. Then I cross-referenced Derek's trucks with DOT transportation records. His official paperwork consistently reported 15-ton loads. My scale measurements consistently showed 40 tons. Federal transportation fraud. Systematic falsification of commercial vehicle weights. That's when I realized Marjorie hadn't just picked a fight with the wrong engineer. She'd accidentally handed me evidence of federal crimes. Marjorie decided to fight back, hard. Instead of backing down after my cease and desist letter, she went straight to the county with a complaint. If she couldn't legally justify using my bridge, she'd make the bridge itself the problem. Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. 3 county vehicles pulled into my driveway. Code enforcement, building inspector, and Marjorie wearing that smile that could freeze hellfire. Inspector Tom Bradley introduced himself with the enthusiasm of a funeral director. Mr. Kellerman, we've received reports about potential structural hazards on your property. Structural hazards on the bridge that Derek's cement mixers had been systematically demolishing for 6 weeks. The irony was so thick I could taste it. Bradley walked around my bridge, photographing cracks that hadn't existed 2 months ago. Every few minutes, he'd glance back at Marjorie, who stood beside her BMW radiating satisfaction. This structure does show concerning deterioration, Bradley announced. We'll need a certified structural assessment. Marjorie stepped forward with Oscar-worthy concern. Inspector Bradley, what about emergency vehicles? School buses? This bridge could be vital for community safety. School buses. For the bridge that connected only to my isolated 12 acres. You had to admire the woman's brass. But here's the thing about dealing with bureaucrats for 30 years. The system has rules, and those rules slice both ways when you understand them. I hired Dr. Wong to perform the required structural assessment. Cost, $2,500. Value, absolutely priceless, because Patricia documented everything with forensic precision. Her report was engineering poetry. Structure exhibits localized stress damage consistent with systematic loading beyond design parameters. Bridge remains structurally sound for intended 15-ton capacity. Observable damage correlates directly with documented overweight vehicle crossings. Translation: Derek's trucks broke it. Here's the mathematical proof. Marjorie's next move proved she'd completely lost her mind. 3 days after the county inspection, I received a certified letter with "Notice of Intent to Sue" stamped across the top in blood-red ink. She was threatening to drag me to court for intentional interference with legitimate commercial operations. Her legal theory was breathtaking in its audacity. Because Derek's trucks had been using my bridge for weeks, they'd established customary access rights through adverse possession of easement. I called attorney Rebecca Walsh and read the filing aloud. The silence stretched so long I thought my phone had died. Roman, in 20 years of practice, this is the most legally delusional document I've ever encountered. She's arguing that systematic trespassing creates property rights. It's like claiming you own someone's house because you broke in repeatedly. But legal insanity doesn't mean harmless. Fighting frivolous lawsuits still costs thousands in attorney fees. Marjorie was betting I'd surrender rather than spend my retirement savings defending obvious property rights. She picked the wrong engineer to intimidate. The game-changing moment happened at 2:47 a.m. on a Thursday, in a courthouse basement that smelled like forgotten dreams and bureaucratic dust. Derek's late-night cement mixers had turned my bedroom into a seismograph. So I did what any insomniac engineer does when his family legacy is under attack. I went hunting for ammunition in century-old paperwork. I was searching for anything to strengthen my property rights case. What I found instead was a nuclear weapon disguised as a 1923 county filing, buried in a stack of yellowed ordinances with paper soft as butterfly wings. Private bridge construction permit for Kellerman property, Willow Creek crossing, with permanent utility easement provisions and infrastructure corridor designation. My hands started trembling as I read the technical specifications scrolled in grandfather's careful engineering script. He hadn't just built a bridge. He'd constructed a utility lifeline. The stone foundation included hollow channels specifically engineered for electrical conduits, water lines, and future municipal infrastructure needs. Every single utility serving Millbrook Heights ran through my bridge foundation. I sat in that tomb of paperwork and started laughing. Not joy. The hysterical laughter that comes when you realize your enemies have been playing checkers while you've unknowingly been controlling the entire chessboard. If my bridge collapsed completely, 47 homes would lose electricity, water, and internet simultaneously. Emergency utility rerouting would require environmental impact studies, creek diversion permits, historical preservation approvals, and months of regulatory nightmares. Conservative cost estimate, $400,000 minimum. But the revelation got more beautiful. Marjorie's Phase 2 expansion required upgrading utility capacity through existing infrastructure corridors. My infrastructure corridors. Without guaranteed access to expand utilities through my bridge foundation, her entire $2.3 million development scheme became physically impossible. Not expensive. Not difficult. Impossible. And then I discovered her investor fraud. Marjorie's development presentations, public record through county planning, promised investors guaranteed utility expansion capacity and existing infrastructure access as primary selling points for Phase 2. She'd been raising investment capital based on infrastructure she didn't own, couldn't legally access, and had been systematically destroying for 3 months. Securities fraud. Asset misrepresentation. Conspiracy to defraud investors. Every cement mixer crossing was digging Marjorie's financial grave deeper while building my criminal case stronger. The beautiful symmetry finally made sense. Grandfather hadn't just been building transportation infrastructure in 1923. He'd been creating generational leverage that would protect family property rights against exactly this kind of corporate bullying. The trap was loaded and aimed. All I needed was Derek's next overloaded mixer to pull the trigger. Dr. Wong provided the technical confirmation. Roman, this bridge will fail within 5 to 7 days if current loading continues. Foundation settlement is accelerating exponentially. Complete structural collapse is inevitable. Music to my ears. I designed removable bridge barriers that slotted directly into grandfather's original 1923 steel anchor points, still perfectly functional beneath decades of moss and weathering. Modern steel sliding into historical anchors with Swiss watch precision, like grandfather had been waiting 100 years to help me spring this trap. I installed weight-triggered alarms connected to cameras and county emergency services. Any truck over 15 tons would automatically notify my phone, start HD recording, and alert Inspector Bradley's office. No more he said, she said about timing or weights. I coordinated with County Environmental Services about creek contamination. Derek's mixers had been leaking hydraulic fluid, concrete wash, and diesel fuel into Willow Creek for 3 months. EPA violations carry federal criminal penalties and mandatory cleanup costs. Local reporter Sarah Martinez had uncovered the bigger scandal. Roman Kellerman was victim number 5 this year. 4 other families had been pressured into below-market sales after mysterious safety violations and legal complications appeared. This wasn't personal harassment. This was a business model. I organized documentation files with military precision. Every photograph GPS tagged and time-stamped. Every conversation recorded and transcribed. Every violation cross-referenced with applicable laws and potential penalties. Grandfather's century-old hand tools sat beside my laptop like ancient weapons blessing modern warfare. The trap was loaded, aimed, and hungry for targets. Tuesday morning, 6:30 a.m. Splash. Crack. Rumble. 15 tons of wet concrete, spinning steel, and sheer stupidity plummeting into Willow Creek while my phone erupted with automated alerts. Weight sensors screaming. HD cameras recording. Emergency notifications firing to county services like digital fireworks. The trap I'd spent 3 months setting had snapped shut with the precision of a Swiss watch. I was speed dialing 911 before the diesel smoke cleared. Within 10 minutes, my driveway looked like a disaster movie set. County vehicles, emergency crews, and one very pale Inspector Bradley clutching his clipboard like a life preserver as he stared at the bridge he'd been investigating, now demolished beyond recognition. Derek stood chest-deep in creek water beside his upended cement mixer, wet concrete hardening around his work boots like karmic quicksand. Then Marjorie's white BMW came screaming into my driveway. She jumped out, designer blazer already showing sweat stains, perfectly styled hair falling apart as reality crashed over her. "Derek, you absolute, I told you to be careful with that stupid bridge." Aunt Marjorie had just collapsed. The thing was ancient. Not my fault it couldn't handle real trucks. Real trucks. Like destroying century-old craftsmanship was a badge of honor. Reporter Sarah Martinez arrived with her photographer, camera ready. "Mrs. Whitman, how do you respond to accusations that your nephew's systematic trespassing has now left 47 families without basic utilities?" Marjorie's media training evaporated. This was clearly an accident. Roman should have maintained his infrastructure better. We'll obviously contribute to reasonable repairs. Contribute to repairs. After 3 months of systematic demolition, I stepped forward with my documentation. 3 months of evidence in a waterproof case, waiting for this exact moment. "Inspector Bradley, here's comprehensive documentation of systematic overloading beyond safe capacity. Derek's trucks averaged 38 tons when this bridge was rated for 15 maximum." Bradley's hands shook as he flipped through time-stamped photographs showing progressive destruction, weight sensor data, and professional structural analysis. "Mr. Kellerman, this is the most thorough property damage case I've ever encountered. It gets better. Environmental Services will want the creek contamination evidence. And federal DOT investigators will love Derek's falsified transportation weight reports." Derek's face went ghost white. "What falsified reports?" "The ones claiming 15-ton loads while hauling 40-ton cement mixers across private property for 12 weeks. Federal transportation fraud, Derek. That's federal prison time." Marjorie attempted damage control. "Now Roman, surely we can discuss reasonable compensation between neighbors. After threatening lawsuits, eminent domain, and systematic harassment?" County Commissioner Patricia Haynes delivered the killing blow, surveying the severed infrastructure conduits in the destroyed bridge foundation. "Mrs. Whitman, do you understand that emergency utility rerouting will require environmental impact studies, historical preservation reviews, creek diversion permits, and approximately 18 months of regulatory approvals?" Marjorie's voice cracked like thin ice. 18 months. Emergency temporary service alone will cost roughly $400,000, assuming no legal challenges or environmental complications. I watched Marjorie's brain calculate the math of her own destruction. $400,000 for emergency utilities. 18 months of regulatory hell. Her Phase 2 development contracts required completion within 90 days. Her entire multi-million-dollar empire had just drowned in Willow Creek along with Derek's cement mixer. The emergency town hall meeting 3 days later looked like a legal execution. 200 residents packed the community center along with reporters, legal representatives, and enough county officials to run a small government. Marjorie huddled with 3 expensive lawyers who kept whispering urgently. Derek wasn't there. He'd been arrested that morning on federal transportation fraud charges. Rebecca Walsh rose like an avenging angel with a law degree and activated the large screen display. High-definition footage of Derek's cement mixers crossing my bridge. Time-stamped weight sensor data showing massive overloads. Photographs documenting progressive structural damage over 12 weeks. You could watch my bridge slowly dying, truck by truck, crack by crack, while Marjorie and Derek ignored every warning and legal notice. County Environmental Officer Janet Morrison presented her creek contamination report. 3 months of diesel fuel, hydraulic fluid, and concrete wash have turned Willow Creek into an ecological disaster zone. Cleanup costs will exceed $200,000 with criminal environmental violations pending. Reporter Sarah Martinez stood for questions. Mrs. Whitman, how do you respond to evidence that you promised investors guaranteed infrastructure access while systematically destroying that same infrastructure? Marjorie's composure finally cracked. This whole situation has been blown completely out of proportion. Roman was obstructing legitimate community development. His bridge was old and dangerous. Old and dangerous. The bridge that had stood safely for a century until her nephew turned it into rubble. I walked to the microphone carrying grandfather's original 1923 blueprints. 200 people held their breath as I unrolled century-old engineering drawings. Commissioner Haynes, my grandfather built this bridge to last centuries. He included utility corridors specifically to support future community growth. Mrs. Whitman's nephew didn't just destroy my family legacy. He destroyed the infrastructure foundation that her own development depended on. I paused, then delivered the line that would make county legal history. Mrs. Whitman spent 3 months telling me to get with the times. Well, here's what modern property law looks like when you systematically destroy someone's century-old family legacy. Rebecca Walsh began reading the legal avalanche. Restraining orders against further trespassing, criminal charges for property destruction and environmental violations, federal charges for transportation fraud, civil suits for damages totaling $847,000, and investor fraud investigations potentially resulting in federal securities charges. Commissioner Haynes delivered the final blow. Based on evidence presented, this commission finds that systematic trespassing and property destruction has created liability exposure exceeding $2.3 million for the Millbrook Heights HOA and associated parties. $2.3 million. Exactly what Marjorie's development was supposed to be worth. The aftermath was swift and merciless. Marjorie filed for personal bankruptcy within 30 days. Her real estate license was suspended pending fraud investigations that eventually sent her to federal prison for 18 months. Her white BMW was repossessed on a Tuesday morning while neighbors watched from their windows. Derek's Pinnacle Construction lost its license permanently. Federal transportation fraud charges earned him 2 years in minimum security prison and a lifetime ban from commercial trucking. His cement mixers were auctioned to pay environmental cleanup costs. The HOA settlement funded my bridge reconstruction using grandfather's original engineering principles enhanced with modern materials, traditional stonework techniques taught to local craftsmen, preserving heritage skills while creating jobs for neighbors who'd supported my fight. Agnes Bellamy became the new HOA president on a platform of respect for what came before. Property values actually increased due to historical designation. The bridge became a county landmark featured in tourism materials. My furniture business exploded after the story went viral. National attention from property rights organizations brought custom commission requests from across the country. People wanted furniture built by the engineer who defeated systematic bullying through documentation and determination. The workshop smelled like success again, hand-planed walnut and fresh varnish, replacing diesel exhaust and legal intimidation. I established a heritage trade scholarship using settlement money, teaching young people traditional crafts, stonework, timber framing, blacksmithing, skills that built communities before corporate development schemes. Sarah Martinez won a state journalism award for investigating development pressure on rural property owners, leading to legislative protections for historical properties throughout Pennsylvania. Derek's cement mixer still sits in the creek, slowly rusting into abstract sculpture, reminding visitors what happens when corporate arrogance meets historical engineering. Kids use it as a playground while learning the difference between building something lasting and destroying what others built. Every morning I run my fingers across stones grandfather selected, mortar he mixed, joints he calculated with slide rules and determination. The bridge connects past and future, tradition and progress, individual rights and community benefit. The trap worked perfectly. Systematic harassment became systematic evidence. Property destruction became property protection. Corporate bullying became community bonding. If you've dealt with HOA overreach, document everything, and I mean everything. Timestamps, photographs, weight measurements, every phone call, every threat. The Whitmans of the world are counting on you being too exhausted, too broke, or too intimidated to fight back methodically. Don't give them that satisfaction. If this story resonated with you, subscribe to the HOA Files. We cover exactly these battles every week. Share this video with anyone dealing with HOA harassment. Drop your story in the comments below. I read every single one. Some things are worth preserving. Your property rights are absolutely one of them.